Hi, this is Georgie with Fempower Health, and today's guest is a force in women's health. She is fearless, unapologetic, and determined to change the way we talk about our bodies. Saundra Pelletier is the CEO of Evofem Biosciences, the trailblazing company behind Phexxi, the first and only FDA-approved hormone-free on-demand contraceptive gel. She's also the visionary who declared August as Say Vagina Month, a bold, culture-shifting movement to challenge censorship, strip away stigma, and demand that we use medically accurate language when talking about women's health. Why does this matter? Because when we avoid saying vagina, we avoid having the conversations that could save lives, protect our health, and secure our rights. Words shape policy. Awareness shapes care. And silence keeps us in the shadows. This month is about reclaiming that conversation, not just for women today, but for every girl growing up in a world where her health should never be taboo. So whether you've said the word 1,000 times or never out loud at all, this is the conversation that will make you think differently and maybe speak differently about women's health. So welcome, Saundra. It's great to have you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you, Georgie. And by the way, your introduction is amazing. I really love myself today. So thank you. It's great to be with you.
No, absolutely. And this is actually our second interview together. So It's a thrill to have you back. So welcome, and thank you. So let's talk about Say Vagina Month. So first of all, I want to say congratulations on the campaign. It's been wonderful to hear experts of all different backgrounds and women and others sharing about why this is so important. So why don't we start with why you decided to declare August as Say Vagina Month? What inspired you?
Well, so I was actually inspired by shock. And when I say that, it was that we care very, very much that women have medically accurate information when they're making decisions that impact every single day of their life. We all know that when women feel as good as they should, that everyone benefits. And so there's so much feedback everywhere I went from mothers, from daughters, from fathers, but from healthcare providers saying that every time they tried to educate women on social media, they were banned, that the word vagina was shadow banned, that they could say male body parts, even in the crudest way, and it would all get posted. And it didn't matter what you said about a man's body, it would be posted. But when you said the word vagina, then you had to figure out little tricks, little tools, little funny ways, but covert. You had to be a covert operative to talk about women's bodies. And frankly, not only is that unequal, it is a huge disservice to everyone, not just women and girls, but to the entire medical field, but also to men and women. So I ruminated on this and ruminated on it and ruminated on it. And I could not accept that, one, I knew this wasn't just the handful of people I talked to. I knew that this had to be happening to everyone that's trying to empower women and not even do anything provocative. Just talk about normal language. Because one, we know that sex education is not taught in schools anymore. Mm-hmm. We know that kids are learning about their bodies on the internet, oftentimes incorrectly. Mm-hmm. So I had this moment where I said to myself, I wonder if we can create a groundswell. I wonder if we can activate a whole variety of constituents, everyone from the most educated providers to people who are just talking to their children. And so I sat down with a couple people from my team and said, every time I speak, I'm going to say vagina 3 times. Everywhere I go, I'm going to talk to people about vaginas at my dry cleaners, at the gym. I'm going to see how people react about talking about the word vagina. And as I started doing it, we then said, we've got to do something bigger. We have got to declare an entire month so that we can create this movement. Mm-hmm. And the movement about decency and mitigating shame. It's not a dirty word. It's not a pornographic word. So that's how Say Vagina Month came about. And the one thing I just want to add is I loved that you said it's been such a variety of people that have chosen to lean in and say, you know what? That's crazy. And we've heard so many great stories and we've had so much support. It really makes me feel grateful.
No, that's awesome. And congratulations on the success and the buy-in. So as you were talking, I wanted to pull this up. So I'm just going to read it because first I want to start with evidence and then I want to talk about the broader piece because it's more than Say Vagina Month. So as evidence for censorship, I'm just going to read this article, not the whole article, obviously, but so there was actually a lawsuit with Dame Products against the MTA. So it's the subway system or transit system in New York. And I don't know if you even knew about this. So in early 2019, the MTA, which runs New York's public transportation system, refused to run advertising from Dame Products, a company that sells sex toys. At the time, the MTA said it rejected the company's advertising because it violated the MTA's advertising guidelines. The MTA said that the ads promoted a sexually oriented business, which has long been prohibited by the MTA's advertising standards. But here's an example of what was rejected, and I'm just showing it on my screen. It's just sex toys that they're not even like large penises. They're just...
Yeah, they're not even phallic, right?
Yeah, they're just... Yeah, at all, right? So several months later, Dame Products sued the MTA, arguing that the MTA's failure to approve ads violates the free speech, due process, and equal protection clauses of the First and 14th Amendments and the free speech provisions of New York State's Constitution. Only a couple more sentences, because this is the part that we really need to see. In its lawsuit, Dame had charged that the MTA had unevenly applied its standards. Dame alleged that there was no basis for the MTA to reject advertising for sex toys, but to accept advertising for the Museum of Sex and men's-focused sexual health products. So as an example, what I had heard was that some of the ads were grapefruit. A lot of people, like if you go on Canva and you're trying to find pictures of vulvas and vaginas, it's grapefruit. And then for the male advertisements, they had cactuses, and those weren't banned. And so it wasn't a permanent allowable thing. I think it only lasted for like 6 months, but it just goes to show that here is an example where they unevenly applied the standards, and this was the implication. And so while this is Say Vagina Month, it's really broader than that because there are a lot of terms that are around women's anatomy or female assigned at birth anatomy that gets banned through advertising, social media, etc.
Well, by the way, I did not know about that. I love that. And thank you for sharing that. And
Sure.
I'm going to use that in my armamentarium,
Please.
because it's so good. Thank you, Georgie. And the one thing to say that to your point is that it's bigger than Say Vagina Month. And the one thing that's really touched me in a really interesting way is the people who have reached out to me to say that there has been inappropriate touching and sexual violence happening. And when young girls tried to describe what was happening because they were told to use different terms, like their cookie, that no one believed them. No one understood what they were saying because they couldn't articulate, they touched my vagina.
Right.
And it was so sad to think that they weren't even told to say their private parts. I mean, they were, purposely steered toward words that have nothing to do with accuracy. And, not to be so dramatic or negative, but look, that can be an implication, but it can also be an implication where when you're talking about your body and if you say, I don't feel good, it's different than saying my vagina hurts.
Right.
Right. So when a parent or a caregiver needs to know what's happening with someone's body. And so I think that, yes, it is bigger, but the inequity that exists. So, for example, not to be cruel, I can say penis, testicle, cock, all of it gets posted. And if you say vulva, anything that has to do with the woman's body. And then the other thing, I was just at this conference called Stimulate, and some of these people were talking about, women are usually the target of blame when things happen like unintended pregnancy, unplanned pregnancy, or even they can't get pregnant. It has to be the fault of the woman. There's an inequity that couples are engaging in sexual activity. I think there's a great movement with young men and young women now where they're really being partners about this. What's the birth control we're using?
Yes.
What are we doing with our intimacy, which is great. I hope that momentum builds. If we don't stand up and say it, and we don't do what we're doing, and I don't have opportunities to talk to people like you, and you care about it too. If we don't say something, who's going to do it? It's our time to do it.
No, absolutely. And, I was, again, going through your Instagram feed of the people that had tagged you. And what was really interesting is it's not even about, it's about everyone being comfortable. And this is an impact I didn't really put together until I saw people sharing. One was as a patient, even when we go to our clinician, what's really interesting. So I talk a lot about this, especially because the genitourinary syndrome of menopause guidelines finally have been updated. And for those who don't know, there's a lot of hormonal changes that happen throughout our life, and especially in menopause, like once you've had, pregnant and after you've delivered your child, if you're taking birth control, like the dryness and all of that. And so it can create symptoms, and you can take vaginal estrogen or DHEA and a couple of other things to be proactive, but a lot of people don't know about it. And when I speak with friends, what's really interesting is they don't always feel comfortable even bringing that up to their doctor. And I mean, we're talking people get recurrent UTIs, sex feels like razor blades to them, and they just don't know how to necessarily bring it up until they're like basically feeling like they're dying. But what's interesting is they tell me their doctors don't ask. And, especially in the perimenopause, menopause years, these things do get significantly impacted, but even the doctors don't ask. And that was why, like Lindsay Harper, she started Rosy Wellness originally because she realized she and her colleagues didn't know how to talk about sexual health with their patients, so they avoided it. So this is not even, a let's just promote it on social media. Like just going through all this, you realize the huge impact to our health and our conversations, because no one, and these are clinicians who are trained on anatomy,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. Well, and I love that you brought that up, because the clinicians that feel awkwardness, you're right. When women don't feel comfortable and then their providers don't feel comfortable, there's an omission that's happening. The other thing that I have heard a lot about is how it impacts women's self-confidence, how it impacts their self-esteem, how it impacts their relationships with their partners. What was fascinating is a lot of menopausal women have spoken to me recently during this month, during this campaign, and they said, we've had so much pain with intercourse and so much vaginal dryness, and no one is talking to us about our hormones and what's happening to us and a loss of estrogen. And we've had to learn it from people like you, Georgie, and we've had to seek out the information. And I think that what Say Vagina Month is helping with, I think it's encouraging women to become their own advocate in a way where even if they felt uncomfortable, they know that they have to do it, because the only thing they can control is their own self and their own body, and they have to advocate for themselves. I've heard a lot of women say that they have built their courage muscle, and that now
That's
they're
great.
able to talk about their body and say, I have pain with intercourse, right? I feel like the Sahara Desert. I don't want to be intimate. I have no libido. And no one's even talking to them about what happens with their hormonal changes, why they have no libido, which is really sad for the quality of life and quality of intimacy that women want.
Yes.
You
No,
know, so
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. It's also, and we had discussed earlier how it's broader than Say Vagina Month, and we're giving examples, but the other is anatomically correct terms. So, I think people are still learning vulva versus vagina. So for those who are on video, because I post this on YouTube as well. So this is the clitoris.
I love that.
See
It's so
how
great.
big it is? So I don't have my Say Vagina Month t-shirts, so I wore pink to match my clitoris. But this
Love it.
whole thing is the clitoris, and this is the anatomically correct, way bigger than what people imagine. There's a lot that's underneath. But yeah, just even understanding the anatomy to be able to explain where someone may feel off or how to talk about, anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yes. And, the first real sexual health conference all about sexuality that I went to was a week ago.
Okay.
And what fascinated me too is that there were so many healthcare providers who literally went there to get narrative and dialogue how to talk to their patients about how they could experience more sexual pleasure. And this might be an awkward statement, so I'm hesitant to say it, but I met a lot of women who said to me, I feel like my partner left me for a younger model. and those younger models were still interested in sex. And it wasn't that I was no longer interested. It was that it just caused me pain. And therefore, I tried to avoid it because it was painful. And it breaks your heart, right?
Yeah.
It breaks your heart. And the other thing is that learning about your own body, by the way, okay, there was a company that had a mirror, that the sides of the mirror were concave, and you put it between your legs just to look at your own body and see what it looks like. Because when you're getting examined, your legs are in a stirrup. You don't see what's going on.
Yes.
And that was amazing too, to just be able to look at what's there, and see, the different parts of vagina, vulva, those things, which I know this is an oversaid statement, but knowledge is power.
Yes.
To know how your own body works and feels. So it was this month, I will tell you, has been, I think, maybe the best month of my whole career, because I really feel like this has connected me with what we're doing. Yes, we care about non-hormonal birth control. And thank you for talking about Phexxi in the beginning, because I am a cancer survivor, and many women who shouldn't use a hormone again for contraception. But when women are going through menopause, that's a very different hormonal situation than it is when you're young and you're trying to prevent pregnancy,
Yes.
right? So that's why it's been really interesting to see that too much shame has existed, too much silence has existed, and really being able to be vocal about it with pride, has been
Oh, that's really great to hear. When you were talking about the mirror, it reminds me of an interview I did with Dr. Rachel Rubin, who, by the way, kudos to her for the fame. She was written up in the New York Times not long after I'd interviewed her, and she was recently on Peter Attia's podcast, and she also was at the FDA hearing on menopause. Like, she's amazing because she genuinely cares. She's not in this to suddenly sell supplements or whatever. And I'm not poo-pooing the doctors that do, but genuinely, she is just like, let's make it happen. And she speaks her truth. But when I had interviewed her, she had said that one of the things that she does with patients, and she actually gets the mirror out in their first appointment, and she has them look at their vulva, which you can see easier than the vagina. She educates them on everything that goes on, and what it looks like and the color and just all of it. She just explains it to help the women feel more safe, because how many of us have taken that mirror to understand? And the thing is, the mirror is important because if you notice changes, then you can educate your doctor about what's happening with you. And by the way, speaking of doctors, I don't want to lose this point, which is sometimes the doctors, it's not their own shame of why they don't talk about sexual health with us. It could also be they're not sure what we're open to as far as dialogue. And so they're kind of like, they're in this trap of, I know how to talk about it from an anatomical perspective, but this is also a emotionally sensitive topic. How in the world do I talk about it? So I don't think it's more, it's kind of like a, how do we have the dialogue to not make the person feel uncomfortable? So just to clarify that with the fabulous clinicians that are out there.
Yeah, no. I could not agree with that statement more. Plus, that's why I'm hoping that this will encourage women to be the one to bring it up, so their providers will know this is okay, right?
Yes.
This is an okay topic, right? And it's not a taboo topic, to, your point, and which I love. I think that's really important. Well, and the one thing about people who are really advocating for this, the providers have been enraged that they get banned from social media. Like, they're making genuine efforts to educate women, and they have to make up crazy words. These people don't have a lot of time. They're genuinely trying to put out accurate information. And then they realize that they have to do the circuitous way just to say something that's anatomically correct, which is maddening, completely maddening. So the other thing I'm hoping is that I use this cup today just for this, saying, these are the tears of my enemies.
I love it.
And my enemies are the ones that are banning the word vagina. That's who my enemies are.
There you go.
I'm hoping that, we create a correction, that this movement creates a correction, and most people came from a vagina, right? Like, nothing should be dirty about it. And so I feel really, really excited that also, being the CEO of a company, that a lot of the providers have said, you're a CEO of a company? are you going to get fired? and which is really funny because they're like, we don't see people put themselves out there and talk about things that others might think are provocative. And what I've really liked is it's been able to showcase the corporate culture of our company, right? That we are different. We want to be different. We're here by design to be different. And we think that if you're in women's health, you should be loud and proud. We think everybody should be talking about it, particularly the CEOs of this company, particularly the executive teams of these companies, right? Otherwise, what are you doing for it? We get that, yes, you want people to use your product, but you have to show that you genuinely care about it, because if you don't, why should patients, And so that's been really funny, where people have been like, are you sure you're going to be around next month? Because you might get in big trouble for this,
Well, I will say that I've known you for a few years now, and I, speak with Mitch, who works on your team, and you guys are truly just genuinely passionate about this. So a question for you: how have things gone on social media with bans and visibility versus visibility of the posts and using the hashtag Save Vagina Month? Because I don't know if you remember when I posted on LinkedIn, I used the @ symbol for the letter A because I wanted to make sure that my sharing with people about Save Vagina Month did not get banned on LinkedIn. And, by the way, we're having to do that with breastfeeding. There was a whole, if you didn't call it chest feeding, it would get banned. I just have heard so many crazy stories. So what have you noticed? Because a lot of people are talking about it. And so are you hearing people are getting blocked? What's been the impact of using the hashtag?
So in the beginning, everyone was getting blocked all the time, constantly.
Really?
And people were upset because at first, a lot of people approached us and said, why are you doing this? Why does this even matter? So many people didn't recognize the inequity of talking about male body parts versus female body parts. And one of the funny, some people didn't even realize it was getting banned. They didn't realize they were getting banned. They didn't even recognize that their posts weren't even going up or they were being taken down. And so then, we know what it was? It was like we lifted the blind. People started to think, what? And so we were able to ignite a little bit of enragement in a positive way to say, what? Are you kidding me right now? People could not believe it. They couldn't believe it. But now in the past week, now I don't want to get too, fantastical chasing unicorns here, Georgie. But in the past week, some of the bans have stopped and they've been able to post. So I'm hoping that we have created a big enough push, and it will continue so that the posts go up and that they don't get taken down. So yes, we've seen progress, but it's only been in the past week.
Okay. So what's the call to action here for those who are listening who are like, I'm going to speak about the importance of this? What are the hashtags that we should be using, and how can we help spread the word?
Yeah, the biggest hashtag is Save Vagina. That's the biggest thing. And truthfully, it's liking and sharing and commenting has what's been able to create viral movements that change the decision makers of the social media, of all the social media, channels, frankly. When they see enough likes and enough comments, that's what's and enough sharing. The sharing has been the biggest thing, so that we're creating this broader net, right?
Okay.
Not just liking, but sharing. Sharing has been the biggest thing that we've seen. And we actually talked to a couple of experts on metrics, what really is it? And yes, doing your own post is very important and very valuable, but what really matters is how many people share it.
Yep.
That's what makes the trigger, if you will, to make these social media franchises say, you know what? We should stop this.
Got it.
Because we're going to start getting haters, if you will.
Got it. Now, do you want it to be Save Vagina or Save Vagina Month? Because I feel like I've seen Save Vagina Month. I just want to be clear.
Save Vagina Month.
Okay,
Save
perfect.
Vagina Month. I'm sorry. Yes, Save Vagina Month.
And then what else I also want to do is give credit to a couple of companies who've really been trying to deal with the fact that advertisers are banning a lot of these posts. So Jackie Rotman, who runs the Center for Intimacy Justice, if anyone wants a deep dive into her work, I did interview her a couple of years ago. A young woman who is so incredibly well-spoken and has dedicated so much time in fighting with Facebook. And I guess now Apple was on the list. I haven't read the latest in what she's doing, but I know she's really been working in that area. and has been asked to speak. And I know there's another organization, I don't know as well, censorship. I would highly recommend researching those companies. And if anyone is getting banned, maybe connecting with them or you to just keep the information flow going so that we can ensure that we're all up to speed. But I'm so grateful that you're doing this. And it's been fun to learn as you're learning as well from the reception that you're getting with and the feedback that you're receiving with how important this is. And it's even opened my eyes to just how deep this goes. Because I guess when talking to Jackie and others, I just saw it as more the ads, but just seeing the impact on our health and how we talk about it, it's like, wow, this really, really runs deep.
And I will tell you this, that I think that the most critical part is that the women who have given us feedback and comments and chosen to share, I think the most significant thing is they feel connected to their own bodies in a way that they didn't feel connected previously. And they just wanted to know that the majority of us don't know enough about our bodies. The majority of us want to know more about our amazing bodies and our female body parts. And that when they're not alone, two, they shouldn't feel foolish. They shouldn't be insecure about it. My mother wasn't taught about her body. She didn't teach me about my body. It's that I think that what's happening now is women are saying, no wonder I have felt this insecurity. No wonder I have felt shame. No wonder I have this feeling that I can't quite articulate, this insecurity about what's happening with my body parts and my hormones. And you know what? That's over. I'm done with that. That's in the past.
Yes.
And who I am today and moving forward is I'm going to be an advocate and talk about it. And I'm going to step beyond the uncomfortableness and really discuss it. So that's what I feel best about. I think that's the coolest part of this Save Vagina Month.
That's wonderful. And I will just say for anyone who's listening, because I've been interviewing experts for the past 6 years now, if you can believe it, on women's health, I feel very comfortable with the language because I've spoken to a lot of sexual health experts, for example. And it's funny because my friends, the stories that I hear, and I just encourage them on the medical information that I've learned from doctors, and I help them guide them on what to talk to their doctor about. I ask if their doctor is asking certain questions. And I just want to assure everyone, the thing you may be dealing with, I will guarantee you everyone else is too, or most people. And if we all just talk about it, and it really starts when we're younger and using those terms, I know I don't want to take away from the women, but I have a little boy and I remember he was having a lot of question about his body when he was younger, and I'm not a man, so I don't understand what's happening. So I had to call his dad sometimes, but I made sure to use anatomically correct information. And it felt so uncomfortable because he's 2. And so I'm well, this is what's happening. And I would use anatomically correct terms with me. And now it's just no big deal. And so I will say it's probably okay to also feel a little weird. But
Yes.
Once you say it, just say vagina 3 times, right? Just say these things. Once it comes out, the spin in your mind is it's freedom, right?
Yes. Yes, it is. It's freedom. It is, Georgie. I'm telling you. It is. It's really important. And the other thing, people like you, okay, and programs like Taboo Topics, what's great is that the people who care about it have an approachability and a kindness and a genuineness where you want to talk about it and you want it to be a safe place and a safe space. And you invite guests that care about all of this, women and men, right, and our bodies. And so I think that's been really great too, is to see how many people are part of this kindness movement to appropriateness about our bodies. Because we only control what we feed our bodies and what we feed our minds. And, being the most loving and accurate we can be, the better we'll become.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, congratulations on leading this movement and the success that you're achieving and being able to overcome these bans with the
Thank you.
stopping of bans over the past week. So congratulations. And I'm really excited to share this content with everyone. And I presume that everyone will be as receptive as you've seen so far and cheering you on. So I can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you, Georgie. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me today on Fempower Health. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please follow me on social media. I am most active on Instagram, LinkedIn, as well as TikTok. You can also subscribe to the weekly newsletter if you want to stay off social media to get the latest and greatest updates. And you can find the link to that either on my website, fempower-health.com, which is a hub to all the different health topics I've covered over the past 5 years, or you can go to the show notes where there's links to all the helpful resources that are relevant to this discussion. And if you know of someone in your life who would benefit from this information, please do pass this along, because that is how we can ensure this important information reaches those who need it most. And for anything that is discussed medically, please understand that none of what we share on Fempower Health is medical advice. It is all for information purposes only, and only a conversation between you and your doctor can give you the care that you need. Thank you very much.